all good. You're good to go.
Okay,
Thank
okay,
you.
let's continue. Hi, I'm Tom. I'm from the Netherlands, and I'm going to talk to you a bit about the situation in the Netherlands and what we can learn about this. I only have a short amount of time, so let's continue on. First, a little bit about myself. I work as a freelance journalist. You already heard that I work for Vice, but also some other television programs and newspapers. On top of that, I'm the chairman of the Changing Perspective Foundation. We give harm reduction information to drug users. We do it online via our website, but also via Facebook. And just like many of you, I'm also a student at this moment. I went back to university to study political science. So hopefully next year I will be a graduated political scientist. And also I'm an enjoyer of many psychedelics, which I think is important to say because let's face it, it's just nice. Let's take a look at the Netherlands. I don't know if you've ever been to the Netherlands or capital Amsterdam, but if you walk around for a bit, it doesn't take you a lot of time before you see a picture like this. It's called a smart shop, and a smart shop is can sell psychedelics, and it's actually perfectly legal. You don't even need a permit to open a shop like this. So you can just start whenever you like, and then you can sell magic truffles, for example, which is the most popular product. But you can also sell cacti like San Pedro, or you can sell 5-MeO-DMT, albeit not for human consumption officially. You can sell iboga or salvia or novel lysergamide, and also not for human consumption. And what is also legal in the Netherlands is to open retreat centers. And we have a few of those, and they give therapy sessions with truffles, for example. I have to say they're hugely expensive, so it will cost you around 1,500 euros per trip, but then you get the best care possible. What's also amazing is that we have a fantastic drug testing system in the Netherlands. It's called the Drug Information Monitoring System, and it tests 18,000 samples of drug users every year on 33 different locations. So I think it's the biggest test system in the world, which is really cool. And if you take a nice example of how this takes into play in the Netherlands is, I think, Sci-Fi Festival. Sci-Fi is actually the only festival I know that isn't only a psychedelic music festival where psychedelics are being enjoyed, but also the psychedelics are being sold. So there's a smart shop on the festival grounds, and they can sell magic truffles and salvia, and it's all readily available there. So when somebody is having a trip but is not having a very good time, obviously there's a PsyCare team, and I was also part of that for 1 year. It was really a very cool experience to have. And what I think is most special about Psy-Fi is actually the municipality in which it takes place celebrates Psy-Fi as a cultural gem. Psy-Fi is located in the north of the Netherlands, in Leeuwarden, and this is not a very touristy place, but Psy-Fi brings over 100 nationalities to Leeuwarden, and the municipality and the mayor, they think it's a really important event, and they celebrate Psy-Fi and they help maintain this this rules. So I think this is really special and a unique case to look at. Sadly, not everything is allowed in the Netherlands, contrary to popular belief. For example, the psilocybin mushrooms are not allowed, which is a bit odd because the truffles below ground, they are legal, but when they grow above ground, then it's not legal anymore. And it's also not legal to make extractions of the mushrooms or the cacti. So if you have pure mescaline, that is illegal, is a hard drug. And what's also not allowed is to make medical claims. So we do have retreat centers, but they cannot tell you, okay, if you have PTSD or you might have a depression, we can cure you of a depression. So that would not be allowed. And also, if you are being treated in such a center and you might have experienced harm, then the organizers can be liable for that harm. So I think that is probably part of why those retreat centers are so expensive. They need top care, they need everything taken care of really well. And sadly, since last year, also ayahuasca ceremonies are not allowed anymore. They were allowed in a religious setting. We had in Amsterdam, we had a church called Santo Daime Church, and they started at the beginning of the 1990s with holding ayahuasca ceremonies with a small religious group. And at the end of the 1990s, they got prosecuted by police and prosecutors. And in the end, the courts decided that this church had the freedom of religion. And under the pretense of freedom of religion, they were free to hold ceremonies like these, which was a monumental case. And they held it on for like 10 years, but then some of the organizers, they got caught when importing ayahuasca, which is actually illegal. And the police and the prosecutors started a new case, which lasted about 10 years. And sadly, the second time, the judge decided that the church had grown too large. And because there were so many members, it had grown from like 100 people to maybe 1,000 people. And the judges were worried that the public health would be in danger. So they said, okay, freedom of religion, yes, it's important, but it's not that important. So they actually banned the church and they cannot hold any ceremonies anymore, sadly. And what was eye-catching was that the judges said that it was really dangerous to use ayahuasca. And of course, our law does say that. But if you look at how did our law get to say that DMT, the working compound in ayahuasca, is so dangerous, it's mostly because of media coverage. And there's the ban of DMT. It was at the same time of the ban of LSD, and it was actually one publication in our largest newspaper in the Netherlands. It's called the Telegraaf. And it was at the end of the 1960s, and we had our queen back then, still a princess, and she wanted to marry a German prince, which was a sensitive topic because World War II was not that long ago, and that our queen would marry a German guy was not the favorite pick. So we had a protest group called the Provos, and they spread rumors that they would give sugar cubes with LSD to the horse carriages of the queen to wreak havoc, to cause chaos as a protest movement. And at the same time, in the newspaper, which you see on the screen, the Telegraph wrote, LSD leads to insanity. The government needs to act very quickly. And our government, they read the publication and they thought, okay, let's act quickly. And the same night, they banned LSD and 17 other psychedelics, including DMT. But what was amazing that they completely ignored the medical uses, which were already known back then. We had 3 psychiatrists in the Netherlands who were already using LSD to treat what we now call PTSD. And they had evidence that it was useful, that it wasn't that dangerous, but it was completely ignored, sadly. And also, like you see a lot with these scare stories, it's just saying, okay, there's a danger, let's prohibit the drug immediately because we have found one danger. And I think we should make it more sensible like this. So I'm skipping ahead. So let's continue on what I think is often forgotten in cases like these. And the most important thing that is forgotten, I think, is that mystical experiences are useful by themselves. They're fulfilling, they connect us with ourselves, they connect us with others, and this value is often forgotten, and I think we should remind people of that. And a very good way to remind people of this is to read and spread the book The Art of Losing Control of Jules Evans, which is a fantastic book about what are the uses of mystical experiences, not only psychedelics, but also tantra or dance or sex or music, continue on. And what Evans explains is that rituals surrounding the use of psychedelics can actually enhance the safety of using the psychedelics. And if you look at sci-fi, I think this is a perfect example of how you can incorporate the rituals into the use. You have a clear festival ground, you have a subculture that surrounds these the use of these drugs. And I think they become inherently intertwined. So using drugs, making rituals surrounding the use of drugs, and then consequently subculture. And also those subcultures, like the municipality and the mayor of Leeuwarden has acknowledged, have value on itself. So it's not only evidence of moral decay that people use drugs. No, it's just a new cultural phenomenon. And I think we really need to explain it like this. So this is what you can do, what you can help us with, is to address the importance of spiritual experiences as an emotional experience, but also as a cultural phenomenon. Just highlight that it is a characteristic of being free, which is obviously an important Western value. Which we also need to do is to set boundaries for acceptable dangers, because way too often now it's said there's a danger, but of course every one of you knows that there's not one compound in this world that doesn't have a danger. So you need to sit with some scientists and you need to prove the medical uses, but you also need to set boundaries. Okay, what dangers are actually acceptable? How many people in 100,000 people can die or can experience harm? And politicians don't want to set these boundaries, but we need to address that it is impossible not to set them. And in order to do something like that, I think it's really important to have good relationships with journalists, because often, let's face it, journalists don't know anything about psychedelics or other drugs. They just write the classic drug stories, and I think they're doing a good job. But I think it's your job to uphold these relationships and to give them quality information and to change the reporting in that way. And lastly, what I think you can do is to start small scale and learn from the Netherlands, start small scale religious groups that use psychedelics as their sacrament. And I give it as a tip because I think it's a really strong legal basis to have the freedom of religion for the freedom of the use of psychedelics. So.